So can I welcome you all to our very first of these webinars, the Regional ConnectX. My name's Julia Spicer. I think I know about 99% of you, so I'm very happy to see lots of familiar faces. And I am really happy to represent the regions on the Innovation Advisory Council. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. I want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners. I'm actually in Brisbane today, so that's the Yagara and Turrbal people. And I am and where I live is Big and Bull country at Gundawindi. So I'd acknowledge the traditional owners past and present, and acknowledge the work that emerging leaders are doing in this space of innovation and entrepreneurialism. I am really excited that today has happened. As I said, I'm the regional representative on the Innovation Advisory Council. Most of you know Wayne Gerard as the Chief Entrepreneur. The other thing that you maybe don't know is there's this team of fabulous people that work at the Office of the Chief Entrepreneur. Sarah Smith is the Chief of Staff, and she's got a team made up of Heather James, who is on the call with us today. Heather, if you can wave to everybody, we'll hear from
Morning,
Heather
everybody.
Today. We have Nikki Whiteman, who's recently joined the team, and Nikki's on the call as well today, I think. So Nikki might also say hello.
Good morning, everybody. Really looking forward to today's session.
And we also have Sandy Mott as part of the team in the Office of the Chief Entrepreneur. And Sandy works a lot with the communications and media. So we're going to talk in a little minute about an opportunity for us all to be sharing our stories. And Sandy is the go-to person for that. So, as I said, I live in Gundawindi. We know, and I represent the regions on a statewide organisation. We all know there's a lot of Queensland north of Gundawindi and west of Gundawindi team. And you will have heard me say that many a time. So whilst I am very happy to sit at that table as a regional rep, I'm really conscious that we cover a broad area, that where, more than half of the population lives outside Southeast Queensland, but that when it comes to innovation, when it comes to business, when it comes to us being able to progress the ideas that we're having, how we do that is slightly different. What we need is slightly different. And I guess this series of webinars came about because we see that there's lots of opportunities for meetups in Brisbane, in Toowoomba, linked to some of the hubs and the precincts around the state. And that's fantastic. But again, what that might mean for some of us in some of our communities is we don't have access to that. We don't live in Toowoomba or Rocky or Cairns or Emerald or Bundaberg or some of these bigger hubs where cool stuff's happening. And what we want to be able to do is make sure that we can, as much as possible, make innovation inclusive to all. I'm going to get everybody to mute themselves if you can, or if Heather, you can mute everybody else, that would be awesome. And so part of this is about making sure if there's information that we want in the regions, if you're hearing about new opportunities, if there's something on the horizon that you're reading about and seeing on social media as a trend or a future opportunity, and you want to know more, how can we use these regional webinars as a way to be able to do that? How do we make this a virtual meetup where we can hear about specific topics, where we can get people to come and speak to us, where we can make sure that we are tapping into this broader network of innovation and entrepreneurs across the state. So that was really my interest in wanting to be able to do some of this. It doesn't have to cost us a lot of money. We don't have to spend a heap of time in the car. We all do enough of that. This is about how we can virtually get around the table and be part of some conversations and not miss out on being part of conversations, and equally make sure that our voices are heard in relation to some of the topics and conversations that are going on. And that was really my interest in being able to deliver this as part of my role on the Innovation Advisory Council, and really happy that the team in the office is happy to support to do that. So we'll talk about how this can look on the way through. We want to make sure that it's really useful to everybody. Today is really a bit of a set the scene. Let's make sure this is something that is what you actually want, and this isn't the world according to Julia, although my family thinks that I usually roll with that fairly well as it is. But what we really want to do is just make sure if this is something that we want as the regional innovation ecosystem, regardless of sector or industry that we might represent, what is it that we want and how can we support each other with that? So that's really, I guess, the purpose of that. We've got a bit of a structure that we want to go through today in terms of having some conversations with you all and using this as a chance to promote and spotlight what's happening. If we think about, what I see as the role of the Innovation Council, and we'll put a link to who else is on that. Some of them are here today. I can see Aaron's online as well. If we think about what the role is of the Innovation Advisory Council, for me, my definition and what I and bringing and wanting to be able to do when we're in those conversations is really around 3 areas. I want to promote the activity that's happening in the regions, promote opportunities to the regions, make sure that we're not replicating and duplicating the wheel. If there's great opportunities out there, how do we tap people into that? We need to make sure that we're always advocating both for each other in the regions and also into some of the decisions that are being made. And the other piece for me is really connections. So yes, the grants we all need and we want to be able to look at funding and support, but the connections and making sure that there's not this sense of isolation and that we're doing it by ourselves, for me is equally important. And I guess that's part of what we want to be able to do. I'll also get you to think about, before I hand over to Heather, I'll also get you to think about, how can these webinar series help promote, advocate, or connect the work that you are doing with others in the state? And we'll talk a bit more about that at the end around how does this become a platform for you? How can we use maybe some of the themes or the topics that we might discuss over the coming 12 months, use this as a way to be constantly promoting and connecting you and the businesses that you might work with, because there's a lot of us on the call that are service supporters of others and cheerleaders of others. How do we use this to promote the great work that's happening in your region as well? Heather, I might throw over to you if I can, and get you to introduce, say hello and introduce a bit of what's happening next.
Yeah, hi, thanks Julia, and hello everybody. Before I continue, I'd also like to just acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're all meeting today, and I know that's various different lands from across the state, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So coming up today, we're going to have a few things that we're going to do and we're going to talk about. Next, we're going to have a bit of a spotlight with someone on the call, which is something that we're going to do regularly, because as Julia mentioned, this part of this is all about connecting people. So how are you going to connect if you don't know who's who? So next, we're going to speak with Tara Diversi from Cairns, in Cairns. And then after that, we're going to have some breakout room discussions about different things that you might want to hear, see, talk about. And then we're going to do some, I suppose, just to shake it up a bit, rather than always just talking, we're also going to do some activities on Slido. Just warning you all, we're going to do a second spotlight later on in the session, and we're going to just pick somebody random from the room to do that. We're going to ask the same questions that we're going to ask Tara. So just, be prepared for that, just in case we call on you. And then we're going to talk about what's going to happen after today's session. So we might just jump straight into the spotlight with Tara. Then if Tara, if you can please turn on your camera and unmute yourself. And just say hi to everybody and introduce who you are and where you're from and what you do.
Hi everyone, I'm Tara Diversi. I live in Cairns, and our program, we run a number of programs. YEP Cairns, which the baseline support from that is from Workforce Australia, the current to what was the old Department of Jobs through federal government. And we run a program through that, particularly helping job seekers to acknowledge self-employment as a credible career choice, and promoting people who may be looking at making quite small changes to right through to looking at big businesses that they're trying to scale their businesses, but it might be at risk of people becoming unemployed. Then we have some other programs that we run through Oz Industry and Advanced Queensland, particularly around promoting innovation and startups and connecting through our ecosystem, as well as we, myself with Kate, are the directors of the Tropical Innovation Festival. So we're pretty passionate about innovation and entrepreneurship. I started my first business accidentally, like many people, as a 22-year-old, and have really seen that the benefits of that initially I thought was a detriment to not being able to get a job. And for the last years have had my own, and the things that I've been able to do, I think, is the gift of entrepreneurship.
And you guys do an amazing work there. And we, I was one of the...
I just am looking at myself. Is there a way where I stop? Oh, there we go. Great. Awesome.
And I know I personally, and the whole Innovation Advisory Council went up, well, the majority of them went up to Cairns for the Tropical Innovation Festival. It was a fantastic time, and you guys put on a really great festival. So I would encourage anyone next year, if you haven't gone, or if you did go this year, it's worth going back next year. These guys do a really good job.
Thanks. It was great to have you here.
Thanks. So Tara, what does regional innovation look like to you?
I think regional innovation, like when we start saying female entrepreneurs, regional innovation is innovation. Some of the most innovative businesses and successful businesses have come from regions or regional people in cities. So I think it's important to start separating of what is different. I think that's one of the difficulties that we face as, regional innovation hub, is how do we get the movement from, well, that's good for the regions, to just being good as overall. Because I think that the definition of success and the measure of success for most people doesn't matter where you live. So for us, it's about promoting things within our area that allow people to access all of the opportunities that they could access regardless of where they live. One of the things that one of my early mentors used to say to me is excellence is geographically irrelevant. And when I started my work in my primary profession, which was as a dietitian, my goal was to be able to set up a successful dietetic business in the country. It was relatively easy because it's a pretty low bar at some stage back 20 years ago. But that was the focus, and really looking at, well, how can we do that? And with in those days, I was very focused on mental health, First Nations nutrition, and sports nutrition, which obviously having the access to First Nations communities made life a little bit easier in that area. But with sports, there's a lot of travel, and there wasn't the ease of access through the internet. I remember my first website not being able to have photos on it, for example, because it was just a little bit too slow up here. So I think it's really looking past what is different and then providing things that the entrepreneurs really need. I think there's too many discussions, round tables and things created about what those regional folk need. And it really is, they just need what all people need. And that is the support that they want when they want it, in the fashion that they want it. And the only way that you can work that out is through doing stuff. So that's why we do a do first and then evaluate, rather than a massive planning component. And we do what we call mini experiments. So obviously, as I said before, I come from a health background. So instead of kind of doing a massive survey and analysing that and putting it through SPSS and doing the full data control, we go, well, let's just try something. If people want it, they'll come. If people don't want it, they won't come. We never beg people to come to stuff. We really just go, okay, we'll trial this. If it works, we'll keep it going. If it doesn't work, we'll just scrap that and not do that again. So we focus on a do first and test rather than a plan, evaluate and do, because we know the types of people that fill out surveys and the types of people that have time to go to round tables and create plans and things like that. And they're not the types of people that we want to help. So they're not our target market. So we want to do stuff with our target market, do stuff that supports them, helps them, and then we jump on things. I've been accused of being the pouncer when we have specific situations where we've got people up here, or we've got an opportunity to run something that, we're on the back of something else, because we do run off a ridiculously low budget. Like when we tell people what we run Innovation Festival off, they are very surprised. And it's around that hustle, friends, favors. Like I'll be speaking at events for 100 years to pay back favors, but it is that, how do we do something we want people get benefit from? And it's not just a bit of a we don't plan things and we don't care if things fail, because things will fail and then we just stop doing them.
Well, those are some really good points, and it's more about the learning journey, right? And let's just get on and make things happen, and we'll learn from them and keep improving as we go, which is a little bit kind of like what this series is about as well.
Yeah.
So next thing then is, well, what is something that you're working on then? Because, you talk about a lot of programs that you do and things that you run. What's something that you're working on that excites you about the future?
We're always working on something, but that could be something that's 10 minutes down the road. We don't really know what that is. We're planning for Innovation Festival, whether that be next year or the following year. Of course, so that's always exciting, but the programs that we do just generally with we're finishing up our last cohort of the accelerator programs. That graduation is next Thursday. And then we have our investor round robin for that on the 12th. Excited about that finishing and seeing the growth that we've had from our entrepreneurs within that program. But I think the thing with being regionally is that we have to be flexible. We don't work on things for months and months. We've got an idea, we do it, it's done, and then we work out what worked and what didn't work, and then try and iterate for the next period for that. So we're always working on stuff. I think building our connections is really important, and then also the types of people that our entrepreneurs and our innovators community benefit from. They're the types of things that we're working on. But I think probably the flagship thing is the Tropical Innovation Festival, and looking at partnering with other festivals to try and make that have a larger attraction to different entrepreneurs from different regions. I think we had 600 unique people at the Innovation Festival this year. I think of that there was like 180 that were from out of town, which is quite good.
Yeah, those are big numbers. That's amazing. So I suppose to wrap it up then, and you've already touched a bit on your thoughts around regional innovation, and rather than it being just the region. So how can this network help you?
I suppose I'm one of those people that I am a bit of a pouncer. So if I see something that will help us, I will ask. I'm never one to step backwards from a question of what can help us, or particularly help our innovators, our entrepreneurs. So for us, it's really about scaling. We have tried to do a couple of things with other regions. We tried to do founder to founder with a few regions, but we do need a bit more support in doing that, and doers. Like, we get a lot of ideas sent our way for us to do, and we'd prefer to be part of a team. That's how we see things. We look at collaboration, and people will collaborate but want to just put logos. So there's two ways you can collaborate: do stuff, which is what we do, or fund things, which is what other organizations do. And I think being really clear about whether you're a doer or whether you're a funder, that works really well, and then how you can work in the system that way. So we're just happy to contribute, find out what people do, and if there's a skill that we need, or we will surely reach out. But also, if you have something that you think can help, or if you're just visiting our region, that's where we get our most engagement, is when we've got someone who's visiting Cairns, Port Douglas, Tablelands, having their little family holiday, and we capture them for an hour or two to do a workshop for us, or talk to some of our innovators. That's been really effective for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so that's, I suppose, something for everyone on the call to consider as well. If there's something that you would like to collaborate with other people in this network, this is your webinar, this is your network as well. So please feel free to let us know, or even just to shout it out at the end of the webinar each time that they happen, and just let everyone know what's going on and provide them with the opportunity to collaborate. Tara, if there's anything that you want someone from this network, say, to collaborate on, let's just put it out there and see what we can happen. And I like your point about the doers and the funders. So something for everyone to think about, I think.
And I think we'll probably do our founder to founder series again. And that was really effective. We had some amazing startup founders and some stories on that. And, we had, I think, most, we've had Matt Barry, and I think we had 85 people or something on that session. And it's just a fireside chat. They don't have to prepare anything. But it is, obviously, some of you know that I got quite sick. And so for the few months I was in hospital, we didn't have a host. But having another host and being able to share that through the region means that we don't have to stop things if things go away, rather than just one person having to do that. And if I suppose one way that we can help is that we see that there's specific skills for ecosystem leaders. So we often see that ecosystem leaders are mostly like advertised as people who are passionate about entrepreneurship, but you need to be able to present, you need to be able to host a webinar, you need to be able to help people write grants, you need to be able to help people understand whether they're a bootstrapping business, angel business, or a business that's ready for VC investment. That's what the entrepreneurs need. So if you don't have those skills, and there's something that or running events, like all of that type of stuff, otherwise you can't afford to get people in to do that stuff, because people with those skills are expensive, and often too expensive for ecosystem leaders. So that's where you might need to go, okay, well, I'm going to work on this little piece, helping people write things like R&D grants. They're the most easy grants to write, and entrepreneurs are spending their last $5,000 on getting someone to do that for them. So however we can help build capacity, or your skills, if you're keen, we can help you with some of those systematic things.
Thanks, Tara. Really appreciate the offer. So everyone keep that in mind. And thank you very much for joining us today and agreeing to be our very first spotlight.
No problem. Thanks a lot, Heather. Thanks, Julia. And
Tara,
everyone.
I think the other thing too, Tara, that is really important is your piece around don't let perfection get in the way, right? So how do we make sure that perfection doesn't get in the road of good or enough or perfect or, excellent, not perfect. So, that piece around how do we just get on and have a go, I think is a real, that's a common theme across a lot of the familiar faces that I can see on this call, and it's a really important one. Also, I think we've just written off every holiday we're ever going to do to the north, because we're all going to do an hour-long workshop for you, so that's no worries at all.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, so we might jump into, let's get everyone involved now. We might jump into our first breakout room discussion, and this is really just an opportunity for everyone on the call to get to know each other a little bit more. So we'll break out into the rooms in a minute, and then but what we would like you to do is really introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, kind of just like what we've done with the spotlight here, and talk about what part of the ecosystem do you represent, how do you how do you get involved in the ecosystem, and again, how can this network help you? So just very much what we've talked about with Tara now. If you'd like to talk about that in your little groups and get to know each other, and we'll give you about 10 minutes to do that, and then we'll come back to the main group, and then we'll go into another discussion. So we'll just send you out into your breakout rooms now. Have fun. Fantastic. That should be everybody back here. So I might hand over to Julia then to talk about the next discussion we're all going to have.
Hello, team. Hopefully there were some good conversations there. We got very caught up in what everybody's doing and finding out what's happening. So I guess the other part that we wanted to be able to talk about is really have a chat, and following on from Tara's conversation at the beginning around, what do we need? We don't want to just, or maybe we do. What do we want to come together about? Is this something that is a series like this something that might be useful? How can we make a chance for us to come together and talk about things? Is it something that we want? What do we need from a regional innovation perspective? And again, this is part of both the webinar side of things, but equally think about it in terms of there's a whole range of different people on this call today, the doers, the funders, the connectors, the whatevers. So what is it that we can do and help each other with along the way? So what we wanted to be able to do was break us into some rooms again. I'm going to make the rooms smaller this time, so there's only we'll have more rooms and fewer people in them, so that we've got a bit more of a chance to have a chat, but really for you to think about what do you need from an innovation and entrepreneur space? What is it that you need? And this time what we want to be able to do is get each group to bring something back to each individual breakout room to bring something back to the group. So we will have more chance to kind of hear what the other groups have been talking about. Okay, give me a second. So the plan of attack is for you to all have a chat about what is it that innovation needs for you? In the spirit of let's just see how this rolls, let's try and get 40 people to have a chat amongst
Julia.
themselves as a big
No.
group. Gav reckons he can't hear me. Can everybody else?
I can hear you, Julia.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to kind of try and play Zoom roulette and ask a few different people to kind of share their thoughts, what came out of that conversation. So as people start to roll in, I'm going to pick on people who won't mind, hopefully, so we can get a bit of feedback around what were some of the conversations. So let me start, and then hopefully we can, as a group of however many we are, have some conversations. Steve Butler, might I please, my friend, pick on you? What were some of the conversations, or what was a summary of a theme that was coming out for your group, maybe?
The theme, it was just myself and Tanya from Rocky, so obviously getting to know her a little bit better, but the theme for us that was coming up is really about that connectivity and minimizing that the impacts of isolation, especially in the regional areas. Even if you are a region but not regional, you can still get that isolation, that opportunity to share experience from others, and that it's quite easy to lose track of what we can do until it's too late, whether it be an opportunity, a program, event, grant, whatever it may be. But the biggest one is really about coming together and being an ecosystem as a whole. And probably the other one is, everyone's in different situations, whether it be families, work, personal life, other obligations. So having that opportunity to access it at a time that might not be suitable for others.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Steve, can I get you to pass on to somebody else? Obviously, you'll choose somebody that wasn't in your group.
Cool. Let's go, Jared. If he's there.
He might have bailed. He had to go to another meeting.
Let me bring up the list. Chad.
Yeah, thanks for that. And thanks, Jules, for pulling all this together. It's really good. We had a great conversation with Adrienne from Oz Industry and Wade from Advanced Rockhampton. And Wade, thanks for those comments in the chat just now. And just building on those, we were talking about kind of the history of the ecosystem. And, I shared a little bit as far as how we got from there to here, because there's a bit of a sense, have we slowed down our approach to supporting innovation? But really, we can see it as a bit of a specialization. We've got a lot of pressures coming in. Workforce challenges absolutely contributed a bit by COVID, impacting a few things, a lot of transitions in different industry sectors and changes happening. But that's actually, on the one hand, you could say it's impacting on the capacity to be able to do innovative investment, actually drives the need for greater innovation, but it's also more specialized and targeted than maybe a generalist approach that we might have been seeing, say, 5 years ago. And so the opportunities within the region then we look at are things like, how do we then support regions to focus on some of those specialty areas, develop those transition strategies, share some of that knowledge between the different communities with that information flow, and also share programs that we're running, and also share what different people are doing, not just across the different regions of Queensland, but different regions across Australia and globally. Like, how do we bring some of those insights in from regions in Nebraska and Zimbabwe to say, well, what can we learn from them, what they're doing?
Yeah, awesome, Chad. And we might be able to have a future webinar around some of the work that Gen Australia is doing. Do you want to pass on to somebody else?
Sure. Scroll through the participants, and we might go with
nervous anticipation for everybody. Will he call your name out?
And Helen Woodland.
I had this feeling I was going to be picked. It's just this gut feeling.
If only it was the lotto, Helen. If only it was the lotto.
No. Do I get a prize? No, it's all good.
You do.
So, oh, thanks. I get the prize to speak. So hi everyone. So I was in a group with Nat Angel and Sue from Cluo Clinical, and we were really speaking about just on a real local level, connectivity on a regional level. So even something as simple as a co-working space. So Nat mentioned Emerald doesn't have one of those. So just something like that where people can come and collaborate. Some regions do that really well, others not so well. So that could be something we could look at potentially to, you know, help keep people connected. And I guess also, you know, investment in the regions. It's you know, the age-old thing of investment in the regions as well. But how can we, you know, really amplify what we're doing, not only in regional Queensland, but also regional Australia? Because a lot of the issues that we're looking at are not just specific to Queensland. So I guess they're sort of the two things, just on a real local level, but also, you know, how can we bring in other regions from across Australia to really engage and amplify what we're doing? That's me.
Awesome. Thanks, Helen. Can I get you to pass on to one other person?
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Who am I going to pick? Liz Alexander.
I think because I'm at the top of the list, Helen. So in our group, we had Nikki Whiteman and Electra Frost, so Brisbane, and Agnes Waters, and yeah, me from Emerald. We had some key themes that people are mentioning already around connectivity, inclusion, but we ended up having, just because I think that'll be the theme for everyone, I'll move really to the discussion we started having at the end of our little session. And that was around how, you know, there has been activity where accelerators, incubators, hubs have been set up across Queensland, and a piece around how we can set up a model for regional innovation in Queensland that's not hub and spoke, but hub and hub. And what is the piece around self-sustaining models that we can share amongst each other that can support all of those hubs. So that was sort of a piece we moved into at the end, which was really interesting. Electra shared a great article in the chat, which I'm not sure whether you can see the chats from just the sessions, but maybe if you chuck it back in, Electra. But yeah, so we're going to chat more about that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just the article on accelerators, incubators, and accountants, cross-collaboration support models that we're exploring for regional Queensland. I think that's the link. It's just a study from about year and a half ago that I'm revisiting with my professional association. I'm an accountant, to see how local innovators and their accounting business advisors can support each other.
Awesome, Electra. And the other link that's done the round, thank you for that. I'm going to have a look at that as well. The other link that's done the round is the work that Advanced Queensland's doing around precincts and places. So that's a really important piece of this conversation. And I think, you know, Liz, this piece around, and there's a few of us on this call who have had this conversation a few times, and how we could progress it might be something out of this early conversation is around, you know, what are some of those models? You know, what do these co-working spaces need to look like? And, you know, it's not all going to be the precinct in the valley, or it's not all going to be a really technical manufacturing hub. You know, it can literally be like we've got in Gundawindi, where one of the restaurants didn't reopen after COVID. So we've sublet it and we use it as our co-working space now and have other meetings and things there. So it's a space that exists in our regional areas. You know, what's the infrastructure that we've got in our small towns where there's a vacant building or a shop or a space that could be used in a slightly different way? And what does that look like? And how do we then, you know, look at the costs associated with it? Chad is just going to be geeking out. Oh no, he's got something in the chat as well. He will be fully geeking out on this whole conversation. So we might want to actually look at how we could have this as a future option. I know talking with actually came up at Tropical Innovation Festival conversation with Carmel around some work that's happening at Cloncurry. You know, there's a coffee shop and a men's shed and a something all in one spot out at Cloncurry, you know. So how could we actually have a conversation or have one of these webinars that's solely around how people are coming together and having some conversations? That could be a really useful way to kind of get this playbook of options or this business model of activity moving forward.
Jules, I'll just add two more things there
Yeah.
that we discussed that may not come out elsewhere. One was that this network and regional innovation basically needs to be part of the whole. So it's an aspirational piece, so people feel like they're looking up and moving towards something in a positive way. And also just this also maybe allows us to become the anti-click. So, you know, in urban areas, it can, you know, the innovation crew can be a bit clicky. We can actually use this to make sure lots of new people are always introduced to our networks on an ongoing basis. So the anti-click.
Awesome. Lovely. Team, I'm conscious, you know, we're kind of opening lots of conversations that today was never going to be able to finish or solve necessarily, and part of that is a little deliberate. You know, we want to see where this can go and what we can be able to do to progress some of it. So what we've done, and Heather, I'm going to hand over to you in a minute to Slido us into the next session. See what I did there? Is to capture some information around how we might want to look at this. What are the conversations? There's no way that I ever want to be the gatekeeper around these things. And as I said earlier, it's not the world according to Julia. What we've done to see and test and get the ball rolling a little bit is set some dates for future webinars and look at how some of these conversations might be able to progress. But part of that is actually making sure that that's of use and of interest to everybody. And so we are the anti-click, as Liz has just started. So what we've done is literally a couple of Slido questions that we're hoping. So Heather's popped it into the chat. Heather, I'm going to hand over to you to walk us through this, and then we can start to have a look at, you know, what are some of the other conversations that we know are coming up that people on this call might be interested in. So I'm going to hand over to you, Heather.
Yes, thanks, Julia. And so everyone, I've just put a link in the chat, but you can also, I've just shared my screen. You can also get your phones and use the QR code that you can see on the screen, or go to slido.com and enter the code that you can see there on the screen as well. And this is just going to be a really quick and easy and hopefully engaging way for us to hear about what you want to hear about, because, you know, like what we've said a few times on the call, this is our network and this is your opportunity to really take this where you want it to go as well. And so, and you know, this isn't the Julia and the Heather version of the world. We want to hear from you. So what do you want to hear about? And then for future webinars, we can go away and we can track down people that can talk to these kinds of topics, and or we can have more of an in-depth discussion around these. So if you can pop in, I'll give everyone like a minute or two to pop in what topics you want to hear about, but I'll also keep the Slido open for a day. So if you did want to come back, if you think of something after the call, or if you're listening to this as a recording, you couldn't join us on the day, you can pop back into this Slido and leave us some more topic ideas. And I can see some really great ones coming through already. So healthcare innovations, Indigenous innovation, community events, how we can collaboratively hold programs across regions. So this is going to keep us going for a while. Thank you. And then after this one, so as you're putting in your topics of what you want to hear about, the next question will be who you want to hear from too. So this isn't just about the topic, it's also if there's a particular person in a region who you want to hear from, or you think the group should hear from, please, we're going to go to that one in a moment. And then the question after that to start thinking about as well is who in your region should be spotlighted. So as we mentioned, you know, this is partially about connection, and it's great that on the call today we got a chance to talk in our individual groups and introduce ourselves to get to know each other a little bit better. But we want to make sure that the whole group has an opportunity to hear from and spotlight different people in the region. So if you know of somebody doing something really cool who might not be on the call today or something like that, it'll be your opportunity to kind of promote them, and then we can go chase them down for a spotlight. So I see people are still typing. I'll give you a little bit longer. before we jump on to the second question. We've got some really great topics though.
Awesome.
Amazing topics. All right, just in the essence of time as well, guys, I might just skip to the next question, but like I said, I'm going to keep this open. So if there are any more topics you want to nominate, please feel free to keep popping them in. So we're just going to go to the next one though. And the next one is, who do you want to hear from? So this could be people connected to your topic. This could just be somebody in the ecosystem who's doing something really amazing. It's entirely up to you. You put them in there, we'll chase them down and get them on here. Oh, there you go, Chad. Someone wants to hear from you. We'll have to get you on a webinar to talk about Jen and the GEC 2023. You're popular, Chad.
Humbled.
I agree. You do all have great stories to tell. Sorry, what was that, Chad?
Humbled, and thank you.
And I'm not sure if any of you have used Slido before, but we're going to this is all being captured permanently within the Slido app. So we're going to be able to draw on these and use these for some really great topics and people, guest speakers for the next 12 months and beyond by the looks. Because I'm not sure if we said this at the beginning, but we'll be looking to do these webinars about every month. But we'll touch on that again at the end as well. I'll just give another quick moment and then we'll go on to the third question. All right, thank you. Let's jump on to number 3. So number 3 is, who in your region should be spotlighted? So this could be yourself. Please feel free to nominate yourself or anyone else that you know of who we should spotlight. And after I close this too, if anyone thinks of, a topic, a person you want to hear from or someone to be spotlighted, please feel free to give my office an email, shoot me an email at chief.entrepreneur@premiers.qld.gov.au and we'll be happy to take on your suggestions.
One of the reasons that we want to do this is generally, this is a massive, Julia, generalization, but in the regions, we are really good at doing stuff. We're not very good at telling people what we're doing. We just get on with it. And that came up in Tara's conversation as well and in some of the groups that we've been part of. So what we want to be able to do is actually make sure that we can provide the opportunity to give people a chance to talk about the great things that they're doing. And that does not need to mean it's coming from an ego-driven perspective. It's coming from a chance to share the awesome work that you're doing in your own regions, to be able to look at how we can provide a quicker chance for somebody else to be able to do what you've done and learn from the time that it's taken to do what you've done. So this is really great to be able to get this list of people together. The comment from Tara around the timing side of things, absolutely. If we want to do this in an hour, we 100% can, and we'll just shorten it up. And obviously, today was really around testing the waters. What do people want to know? Who do you want to hear from? So we'll be able to do, more focused and narrow sessions in future, and we're also going to be recording these, so it is a case where if you register but you can't get there at the time, it might be the case that you can watch the recording. Tanya, you're doing great things in the region, so just make sure that you nominate yourself. Tanya Rutherford. Sorry, Heather, I cut you off.
No, you're right. I was just going to say thank you to everyone who has put something into the Slido and nominated a topic or a person. But in the essence of time, we might just close it down there. But like I said, keep typing. I'm going to keep it open. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen though. And well, if I can work out how to stop sharing my screen.
You have.
Never used Teams before. I have. Great. Awesome. And in that case, we might just jump on then to the second spotlight for the day, because I'm conscious with it being an hour and a half, I don't want to go over time. And like I said, a warning at the beginning, we're going to pick somebody random. So apologies, but how about let's hear from Steve Butler. Steve, can you turn your camera on and unmute yourself and just introduce yourself to the group?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for getting shortlisted. Yeah, my name is Steve Butler. I'm from Innovate Moreton Bay region. I suppose a bit about me for those that don't know or I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet. I've been involved as Regional Innovation Coordinator for going on 5.5 years now, I believe. First off, we never really even had an innovation ecosystem, if we're going to use that word. Being situated so close to Brisbane and also Sunshine Coast, they were both very powerful hubs of innovation with various offerings and services and obviously ecosystem events. So our region, it was pretty much quicker to get to one of those areas rather than one side of our region to another. My story coming into it, being a past founder and not having that support mechanism there or knowing where that's come or which way to really go, so really just faking it till you make it, it was quite evident, and I'm all about trying to help and save people time. So when the opportunity came up, I moved over to Moreton Bay Region Industry Tourism, in which then we applied for the ARIP funding, which I'm sure quite a few of you guys have heard in the past. We're successful in receiving that. And we really worked on a model where with our partners that would form our decision-making or steering group, it was really about the return on intention over return on investment from those partners and what they wanted to give to the ecosystem and what they should be a partner. So from that, we've been able to combine our powers and do some really, really cool things over the last few years, to which at the end of ARIP, we're fortunate enough to have Paul Martins and Anne Lawrence from the Sunshine Coast come down and join our council economic development team. Through the first few years of ARIP, council, I wouldn't say wasn't engaged, but they weren't necessarily a partner in the program, which probably helped us to what we could actually do, having a bit more flexibility. So following everything we've been able to do now, with Paul Martin's direction, we've got a regional economic development strategy, a 20-year vision in which knowledge, innovation and entrepreneurship is one of the key industry pillars. So we've been very fortunate and proud to say that we've secured a multi-year contract delivering with council, fully funded. So that's been able to continue our brand as Innovate Moreton Bay moving forward, really based on that relationship-based methodology over transactional, and backing off everything we've been able to do in past years. Yeah, so we've been doing all different things, really starting from grassroots and moving up. For us, it's really about how can we add value to keep the connections flowing, whether it be through mentor network groups, whether it be bringing the innovation ecosystem together. One of the biggest, well, from what I believe is one of the biggest successes building the culture within our region is through our Innovate Moreton Bay social catch-ups. So we've been running them every single month for 4.5 years now, just about, which organically we've received 30% month on month new faces coming through that. Never had anything less, even through COVID. Numbers did drop, but we still reached that 30%. And that's really, there's no intention for it. There's literally no structure. It's just come down to surround yourself with awesome people, and how can we help and how can you help? So that's been a really, really cool opportunity. Yet again, it's hard when you do it the same place, same time in the month, because it doesn't work for everyone. So we've done some bespoke opportunities left, right and centre. We've been very active in keeping up with all the networks in our region and providing opportunities, and just really being that place to centralise all the information that's out there. One big thing we heard is just there's so many events and opportunities out there that people just get overwhelmed by it. So we've been able to position ourselves in the region where people just come to our website and you've got the most relevant stuff there. But it's not just about what's in the Moreton Bay, it's about what's happening all over the ecosystem of Queensland and also Australia. And sometimes even international events as well. Just because we're not delivering it within our region, it doesn't mean it's not going to be of value to our innovators and founders. Yeah, so
That's fantastic.
yeah,
So
a lot of
I
our
suppose
past events. Sorry, you're right.
No, you're right. I was just going to ask you the same kind of questions that we were asking Tara earlier today. What does, for you in Moreton Bay, what does regional innovation look like?
For me, regional innovation, it's the people. It's the culture. It's creating opportunities and actually being able to connect with people, like preferably face to face, but if not online in the world we're in now, and really be able to give them advice on which way they should go or who they should be connecting to, and make it a valued connection as well. There's nothing worse than making a referral for someone if they're not ready for it. And if they're not, that's where we can activate our Moreton Mentors Network, which is a voluntary army of mentors that we can just reach out to, whether it be for SME, startup, youth engagement, just general advice. I just put the call out. If they put their hand up, we follow through. Most of them give it minimum an hour of their own free time, and then what goes on after that. But it's really about just knowing who's who in the region or even outside the region where we can make that meaningful connection. Innovation works across so many sectors, and our region, I believe from a density point of view and people, is the 3rd largest local government area in Australia. And by the time our RED strategy is over, we'll have more population than all of Tasmania. And that's just in the Moreton Bay region from an economic development point of view. So innovation comes in many forms. A lot of people, which I've noticed, that they always think it's tech, but it comes across so many different industries, and especially working for Moreton Bay region industry tourism, there's so much in the tourism space. There's your normal SMEs and brick and mortar businesses, and just for me it's product process. There's so many different elements to do it. So it's really knowing what opportunities are out there, how we can connect them and make those meaningful connections in a prompt time as well.
Steve,
Yeah,
you're such a good
Sorry.
Heather, you're such a good example of the legacy as well, and how it's grown, how you've been able to bring other partners in, how you've positioned it now really as part of the pillar of the work that's happening across that whole region. It's awesome. I want to keep us moving because I am conscious of everybody's time. I'm also conscious that we have all contributed to a lot of information today, and we want to get that back out to all of us, right? So this is not now just going to live in a big building in Brisbane. We'll package up this information and make sure it can go back out to all of you, because you've potentially got a really good list of speakers that other people in your regions might like to hear from as well. And some of the conversations that have happened today will be useful for your local networks. What I do want to do is just talk a little bit about where we're moving to and some of the conversations on the horizon. So a little while ago I spoke with a lady at Infrastructure Association Queensland around some of the work that they're doing. And again, they have these fantastic breakfasts in Brisbane. They get hundreds of people that come along and talk about really interesting topics. I don't know about you guys, but the thought of getting to Brisbane for a breakfast is challenging for me, and unlikely to happen unless there's other activities happening down here. So what we've done is talk to them about, well, how can we take the topics that they're discussing over breakfast and get them onto a webinar like this. And there's a few conversations that they're really keen to have with us. One of them, and I'm in no particular order here, which is why Heather and I are a good pair, because I do the disorganisation and she gets me back on track. So I'm actually going to start in November and work backwards. So on the 9th of November, we've got a webinar that we're going to run in partnership with Infrastructure Association Queensland. And the topic is going to be around the future industries for the state. So that will be where they will speak to us around some of the work they're doing and have a conversation with us. But what I want to be able to do is make sure that we can top and tail that with businesses who are in regional Queensland that are already working in this future industry space, whatever that looks like, right? So if you or somebody in your network is working in this future world of whatever it might be, we'll get some more information around it. But I just want to make sure that you've got the 9th of November in your calendars. And in the new year, they're also keen to have a conversation with us around the space of electric vehicles and the electric highway and what that looks like across Queensland. How do we tap into that for those of us in the tourism industry online? Obviously, that's going to be something to look at. So there'll be a future one around that. But the 9th of November, the topic will be future industries, and it'll be in partnership with Infrastructure Association of Queensland. We'll have one on the 5th of October. We just need to finalise what that topic might be. And I'm going to do a drum roll and throw to Marcha just for 2 seconds. On the 14th of September, we want to have one, and we're going to do that in conjunction with Nat Cook and the Queensland Government, the work that's happening around SportX and the 2032 sports economy strategy. So Nat and I in Cairns had the analogy that what we're trying to look at is, what's the innovation that's happening in other industries that could be brought over into the sport world in line with the work that's going to be happening between now and 2032 with the Olympics. So I went straight to the Ceres tags, the e-tags for cattle, and how we could use that to track the marathon runners. Nat said that was fine to use that as an analogy, but they wouldn't be ear-tagging marathon runners in 2032. So Marcha, I need you to step in here and just give us a little sprinkling of what we'll be talking about on the 14th of September.
Yes, no worries. Yeah, so we're working on the Queensland Government SportX 2032 sports economy strategy. To build a strategy in the first place, and therefore we would like to do this webinar together. Like we've been going through Queensland, have done a few face-to-face sessions, but for the region we would like to do that online to get your insights in how government could best support the sports, tech and innovation industry. To discuss the challenges and key opportunities. So a bit similar as today, but then based on the sports, tech and innovation industry, so that we can actually create and develop a strategy that is working for us all in Queensland.
Awesome.
Is that like...
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Heather, I'm going to throw to you to wrap up, and we will let everybody head off with their day. You're muted, sister. Famous last words of the last couple of years.
I've been saying, I have not been muting myself this whole time just in case I needed to jump in and say something, and then I finally did at the end and I came unstuck. So while I'm talking, if everyone wants to just use one word to describe how you feel at the end of today's session, that would be great. I just want to let you guys know of a few things that's coming up in the ecosystem that our office is running and looking after, and that is, well, Something Fest overall, which we're in collaboration with Something Digital and Something Tech and PropTech BNE, but we've got one day, the launch day for that on the Monday, the 24th of October. It's called Something X. So check out our website. Following this webinar, I'll send out an email which will have a lot of like links that you can go to get some more information and things like that. But I just want to put something extra on your radar. We'd love to have you there in the room. The thing that we're really going to be talking about is Queensland. If you're in Queensland, we want you to leave feeling like you're in the best place to be to innovate and you're super supported. If it's a visitor from interstate or international, we want them to go, holy shit, we want them to move to Queensland. This is the place we've got to be to innovate. So, and we're also going to be doing a welcome event called ConnectX on the Sunday. We've partnered with Health and Wellbeing for that event. So we're going to be having a bit of fun. We're going to be learning. We're going to be doing things like kayaking and rock climbing and getting people active. So please as well join us for that day. And if you can stay the whole week and do something fest entirely. I also wanted to let you know, because we're really keen to promote this across the state as much as possible. We've got the Low Carbon Accelerator program launched on the 17th of August. Some of you might already be aware of this, but we've partnered with the Department of Environment and Science. And what we're really looking for is low carbon solutions that's really going to help our industries, our corporate organizations transition to a lower carbon economy. So again, if you're interested in something like that, I will send around a link to the website after this webinar. And really, if you're in the region, we're hoping you'll participate as much as you possibly can in this program. We've even put in a travel stipend for everyone in the region. It's going to be mostly a virtual program anyway, but if any time we're requiring a face-to-face component, we're paying for your travel and accommodation, your time to be down here in Southeast Queensland when that happens. So those are probably the main two things I want to leave you with. I'm conscious we've gone over by 3 minutes. So thank you again, everyone, very much for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. I hope you've got a lot of value out of today, and I hope you'll join us for the next SportX webinar on the 14th of September.